Welcome to my channel. Welcome to Yenge TV. I hope everybody's doing well and you guys are having a good day so far. Today we have with us a guest, and her name is Tierney Sheree. She's a Pan-Africanist. She's an author. She has a lot of hat on her head, and she's a brilliant woman. I need it, and I wanted to have her so she can explain to us some stuff like propaganda, colonialism, what we need to do, what we have not done yet. So I won't keep this too long. I'm gonna bring her to the channel. So then we're gonna start our show and we're gonna have a good conversation.
Yeah. So
I'm trying to understand what right now, why we cannot really get together and really fight together.
Yeah. That's what I advocate for in the book. So it's interesting. Whenever I talk to my brothers and sisters like you from the continent, that when I talk to them about the child welfare system and just how horrible it is, it's like, wow, like, why is this system even in existence? Because when you talk to people from the continent, it's like, if our child is in trouble, we don't have people come and take them to a social service agency. You have a relative who can step in and take the place. Unfortunately, in America, our families have been so destroyed, and in other Western countries also, where African people have been taken to, you see that our family structure has been so destroyed by centuries and centuries of state policies that really have been fleecing the Black community and using the Black family as a way to derail any social movements inside of the community. So what happens with the child welfare system as it exists in America is that it's a system that was really created for poverty regulation from the beginning, but it's made to look like it's something that's charitable, made for the well-being of the child, made for safe families. That's what the verbiage that they use. But the verbiage that they use doesn't match the policies. Really, the policy shows that they're criminalizing parents. They're taking children from parents. They're destroying families. And they're doing so really because of social anxiety. They understand that they have created a horrible problem in the United States. They understand that it is their fault. And instead of dealing with the problems and trying to do right by the people and trying to help the families to heal from the horrible systemic oppression that they have historically dealt with and that they continue to deal with, instead the response from the child welfare system in the state in general is to take the children and try to send them off somewhere where the child will not pose a threat because the family will be destabilized. So this is played over and over again. Also, you'll see the same thing in the Native American community. Luckily, the Native American community has been able to organize around the issue. And although things aren't perfect with them, they're still disproportionately represented in the child welfare system. They at least have an organizational structure to challenge the taking of their children. So what I advocate for is that us who are trapped in America, that we start organizing among ourselves to make sure that we get some type of laws that are passed to protect our children. But that's not going to happen until we get outraged enough and until we have this issue actively in our conscience as a people as being something that is intentional, that they're intentionally attacking the Black family. This is not a happenstance thing. Therefore, we have to come together to deal with this system and be able to inwardly protect our children instead of allowing our oppressor to come in and infiltrate our families.
Yes, we need to be outraged enough, and slap the door and say enough is enough.
Yeah.
But according to you, what is the reason, or what they put in our mind to make us believe that it's okay to let our kids? To let them get our kids. I don't know. Is it poverty? Is it just negligence, like we neglected them?
Yeah, so it's funny, like the child welfare system, it's supposed to be for abuse and neglect. That's what they advertise. But whenever
Yeah.
you actually look at the numbers of children who are in foster care, over 60% of them are in foster care just for neglect. And about 14%, I believe, are in foster care for abuse. And then other ones, there are other categories that kind of also fall into neglect. The thing to understand about the category of neglect is that it's essentially poverty. It's essentially saying that the parent, maybe the parent doesn't have enough food in the house. Maybe the parent works too many hours and isn't regular or isn't there to watch their child. Maybe the parent doesn't have childcare, so the parent leaves the child with some family or some neighbor, and then something happens in that way. Neglect is such a broad category, but it really overwhelmingly represents people who are poor. So that's why really you have a situation where African children are disproportionately represented because, like I said, the state created this system. They created this situation that we're dealing with, and they're not willing to eradicate it. They would rather find backdoor ways to ensure that we're still kept inside of this position while they are able to benefit from the stability that they desire. So it's really a backward system, and they use the propaganda of abuse. You'll hear horrible, horrible stories, and those will be the representations of what happens in every single case. You'll hear horrible stories of abuse. They're very serious, but that's not overwhelmingly what happens whenever children are taken from their families. Overwhelmingly, it's just poverty.
Just for poverty. Yes. And I remember, I was not new here, but it was in 2008. Maybe I came here in 2005. So, 3 years later, we had Obama. Obama gave us so many hope. And for many of us, like till today, they really think Obama was great for us. I don't think so. I think it was just, I don't know, a little boy in the White House.
It's funny. I think there's not a lot of people bold enough to come into the Black community and say that Obama was good. Though they might do it on white mainstream stations, but a lot of people won't go to the places that know better. So obviously we know that the same way we were talking about earlier, Black men have been used to pacify resistance. Obama is probably the best example of that. I mean, he was literally used to say, you guys are doing better, therefore stop complaining. You guys have a president. And the same president refused to go out on a limb for the people who he was saying he was there to represent as being a symbol of progress. So this is the deceptive thing that's often done. We have to understand that these symbolic gestures by the system are never for our liberation. Symbolism is never for liberation. Symbolism is only for pacification. So regardless if it's him, if they're trying to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill, regardless of what it is, all this symbolism is to ensure that Africans here in the U.S. are kept under a mirage of thinking that they're inside of a society that loves them, even though they're inside of a society that treats them as if they're nothing, as if they're not human, and as if they're disposable. So that's all it is. Same tricks,
Yep. Symbolism, which make us not think deeper and get a real analysis of the situation.
Right.
Yes. And what people don't know, and this is even when I speak with my brothers and sisters here, and I say them, you don't know what Obama did overseas to African countries.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
He did a lot of bad things to Africa. And one of the main message he got for us is to support gay people, gay rights. And it's not a coincidence that Biden the minute he got elected, he addressed the African Union by talking again about the same thing, gay rights.
Right. Yeah. And I remember that the issue was that he had a meeting at the African Union, Obama. And that was one of his basis for not involving Zimbabwe. And we know that the issue in Zimbabwe, which is dire, is that the people have been under sanctions that have been crippling the economy. So when I look at what Obama has done, he basically finds a way to change the subject and finds other issues to keep people discussing other things rather than discussing the colonial situation or the military situation. So in that instance, yes, I think that he utilized the LGBT issue as a way to overlook the real situation. You know, how do you overlook the poverty? How do you overlook the corruption that's being driven by neocolonialism? How do you overlook the military presence in Africa? And I'm glad you said that, though, because it was the same thing from what I saw, like in Africa. Like a lot of people were allowing him to go around and lecture them like they would never allow an African to do, because they thought that he was a symbol of progress. But what we have to understand is that if someone's not here to eradicate the colonial system, then that person is not a symbol of progress. They're a symbol of continuing our oppression. And that's all Obama was.
Yes. 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 And now I do have a question, and I would just want to understand. We have a identity issue. When I say that, it's not just our brothers and sisters who are in the US, but I think even in Africa, because the school we went to was Westernized schools. The language we speak, some of us speak English, French, or Portuguese. That's the oppressor language. That's not our language.
Yeah.
Even though we can say, okay, those who were born on the continent saying, okay, you know, I was born here, I know my culture better than anybody. I don't believe in that. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
So you think we need to put like more culture, like going back to our culture, really understand our culture, and it start also by understanding our history.
Yeah, we have to understand our culture, and we have to me, find ways in our culture to motivate us for resistance. That's what we really have to do it for. I think some of us get boggled down in aspects of just celebrating African culture. Absolutely, African culture has to be celebrated, but the purpose of it has to be to rid ourselves of the colonial system. To me, our culture is the perfect way to rid ourselves of the colonial system, because we have such a legacy of men and women who fought the colonizers, who fought for independence, who fought for autonomy. So we have to revisit those things. And we also have to look at systems that worked for African people, because I think we can all agree that the systems in place on the continent do not work for us. They work against us. So we have to understand that prior to colonialism, we were living happily, we were functional, we were enjoying our independence. What did that look like? How are we able to do that prior to the European colonial system? We have to look at those things as a means and a basis to struggle for that autonomy and for that same type of self-reliance and self-governance. We have to rely on our principles as a people to motivate those types of things. So I absolutely think that we should be looking through our cultures. I think that Africans should make it a priority that we're going to learn African indigenous languages, but it doesn't mean obviously that we can't communicate as of now in the language that's going to rid us of, or going to connect us rather to people who are similarly situated. So for example, if you're someone who's in a French-speaking African country, yes, you absolutely need to learn your indigenous language. But if you are going to be able to talk to someone in another country who has a different indigenous language, and that will allow you to organize with them, by all means, use all tools that we have to. We've been ingrained with a lot of the colonial system, and luckily, in some ways, we can use their tools to decolonize. Because if you think about it, like think about the fact that I see more voices on the internet talking about things than I would have if there was only TV. I see our people taking the tools that are utilized by the colonial system, such as social media, you know, different platforms that give us more access to our people. We're taking those platforms, but we're using them as a tool, understanding that the ultimate goal has to be for liberation.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that.
That's true. And Tierney Sheree, I'm sure you came across that question here in America. Our brothers asking you, or Pan-Africanists in general, why going back to Africa?
Mm-hmm.
Why we cannot just fight here?
Well, it depends on your goals. You know, me personally, I have reached a conclusion a long time ago that this system is set up and it's functioning, meaning it's doing what it's supposed to do. And to completely be free from the system, you would have to abolish the system. And to me, I would rather fight for freedom somewhere where freedom makes sense. You know, freedom looks like, to me, connecting to the place where freedom was robbed from my ancestors. So some of my people, they do have the mindset that, you know, we're Pan-Africanist, but we more so do it in a way where we're struggling internationally, making solidarity with different African people, even though we don't necessarily want to go back to Africa. You know, that's their choice. Me personally, I just don't believe there's going to be a day where there's going to be peace in this land for African people. And I do believe, though, that there will be a day where there's going to be peace for African people in Africa. So for me, that's the ultimate goal. Even if you have to struggle with the mindset that I'm waging this now from the place of imperialism where it reigns, for the ultimate objective of going to Africa and continuing to struggle there. You know, I get, I have to say that part because I feel like a lot of our brothers and sisters were kind of like fleeing to Africa to run away from the systemic issues that we're dealing with here. But we have to keep in mind that the same system, although it might not be as perverse in certain ways, it's perverse in other ways in Africa. So we have to go there with the mindset that this is the other front of the battle where we're going to continue fighting, not go to Africa just to enjoy the low cost of living and enjoy not having a police presence inside of our neighborhoods. But yes, ultimately for me, I think the only thing worth fighting for is the place that was deprived from me and deprived from my ancestors, and that's the only place I truly believe I'll be free.
Got it. Yes. In the states we are in right now, honestly, Tierney Sheree, it's really hard to know who is real, who is not real.
Mm-hmm.
On the continent, in America, me personally, sometimes I'm like, okay, what's going on? I'm lost.
Yeah.
I know you have heard about it. An activist who get the support from a corporation, it doesn't sound good to me.
No.
Something's off. You know, I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, I think that's where you kind of get to the nitty gritty of what these people are here for, because you'll notice that the people who have taken on the mantle that we're not just fighting racism, which is an endless fight, honestly, if you're not talking about eradicating white supremacy. But we're not just fighting racism, or we're just fighting racism continuously versus we're fighting the source, which is the global capitalist system. So when you see people being sponsored by corporations, that's not necessarily a contradiction to them, because they might have said, I never meant to get rid of capitalism. I just wanted to make capitalism more livable for us. I wanted it to be more enjoyable. But I still want to take this money. I still want to have a nice house. I still want to take care of my family. So I think that those things, as annoying as they are, it lets us know where people stand, and it lets us know where to put them. And once they show us where to put them, we put them there. You know, we don't think that they're going to come out and speak to the issues directly. We understand when you're being sponsored, and this is a long history of people being sponsored by the system, you know, to come in and rally us up and, you know, get us angry and then, you know, go back to their $1 million house. You know, this is a long, long history. So that lets us know where to put you. That lets us know that you're not here for revolution. You're here for reform that is going to continue your ability to make money off of this thing. So I think it's a good thing that, you know, our people are outraged. So let's now look at those people for who they are. They're not people who are revolutionaries. They're people who are reformist at best.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. And Tierney Sheree, I watched one of your videos. In that video, you were saying you must join an organization.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on it a little bit? I'm asking. Hold on. I'm asking you that because it seems like in the French side where people speak French, they said no organization. No leadership, because we don't trust we don't need a savior, like a white savior, white Jesus, or something like that. We need to be everywhere with some small movements and hit the system. But you, in your video, you said you must join an organization, and you even play in your video Kwame Ture, who said Malcolm X had an organization. Marcus Garvey had an organization. Can you elaborate on that? I just want to connect with that.
Yeah, I mean, so let's be clear. We've talked about some of it. Our people have been very, very much mistreated by the people who have been put in leadership positions over us. I think, again, you have to understand that a lot of people could get bribed. A lot of people become concerned with their own well-being and put that above the well-being of the people. So we do have a long history of people doing us wrong, but we also have to study history. And I think that's my biggest complaint. I've heard this, you know, on the English speaking side. That's my biggest complaint, is that we come up with these ideas like you can actually have a revolution that's decentralized. What revolution ever existed that was not an organized, concerted effort to rid the people of oppression? There hasn't been none. The other one I've heard we don't need leaders. You do need leaders. You know, what actual movement has existed where the people, no one was in leadership? They all just came together and said, okay, we agree with this, and so we're just going to do it. That doesn't happen. It's not realistic. And so I think the thing that we have to do is study history, study what has worked, study the revolutions that were successful, study the Cuban Revolution, study revolutions where people were actually able to gain power. There has always been people who are going to be the vanguard. So what we do have to be concerned with is ensuring that we're in organizations that are representative of the people. And you can get to that whenever you start realizing the intent of the people. Are you organizing to get money, to get sponsorships, to get donations? Are you willing to turn down donations from people like, what's that guy's name? The guy, Open Society Initiative. Soros, yes. Are you willing to turn down something from someone like George Soros, who has been very much complicit inside of regime change inside of African countries and other countries of people who are oppressed? Like, what are you willing to do? Are you going to be a movement of integrity, or are you a movement of opportunism? But we do have to be organized, people. Like, don't let this system, you know, the system has also become ingrained into us that we think individuals make things happen. Individuals do not make things happen. We only make things happen when we're together, when we're united. So join an organization, everyone. And as Kwame Ture used to say, you know, if you don't have one that represents you, start one. Find some people who feel similar as you do and start an organization. But I do think I've learned that there are a lot of organizations in existence. The issue that we have today is making sure these organizations are properly positioned to outwardly challenge the white supremacist system. Yes, and I agree with you. There's no revolution with no organization. Right.
People can look, check your history, go back, read, watch videos, go to the museum. There is no revolution with no organization.
Yes.
So when I hear that, sometimes like, okay, I jump on my chair. I'm like, okay, these people are still dreaming. Okay, I do have a question here for you from Lumoni. It's in English. I don't know if you can read that.
If she goes back to Kemet, where it would be just to get an idea. If by Kemet
is just Africa. Kama. We say
okay,
Kemet.
because I've heard it referred to as Egypt. So Africa in general, yes, I've gone to Ghana. I would love to go to Africa more. As you guys may know, in the U.S. situation, they make sure you only have a certain amount of vacation days a year. But I'll be going back this year. I want to travel to other places in Africa, but I don't want to travel in a touristy, like I'm just trying to, live the best like luxury life. Like to me, like the only real purpose to travel is to, become exposed to what's going on with the people and understand the everyday struggles that's going on with the people and support anyone who needs support. That's really, to me, the best motivating factor as far as exploring other places outside of Ghana.
Yeah, and Tierney Sheree, may you also talk to us about your organization, which is we charge colonialism.
Yes.
What is about? What is about?
So we charge colonialism. It's principally based in the United States, but we have brothers and sisters moving back to Africa and still engaged. Essentially, we are charging the United States government with the colonization of African people here. Meaning, when you look at the ghettos that exist in America, when you look at the Black communities, you understand that our people are still colonized this very day because you have an outside dominant power who is taking from the poorest people, who's raiding their communities, who's policing their communities, who's ensuring that those people remain a commodity inside of the prison industrial complex. They're just various levels of oppression, and that relationship is a colonial relationship. So what we're trying to get our people to start saying is that we're not just dealing with racism, we're not just dealing with police brutality or whatever, we're dealing with colonialism. So doing that is important because that helps us to realize that our problem is not an American problem, it's really an international problem. And that's what we have failed to realize today. In previous generations in America, those things were recognized, but today we're starting to get boggled down in domestic politics, thinking that these things are unique to the world. They're not unique to the world. You might not hear about police brutality all the time in Africa, but trust me, it's there. And not only is that there, you also have the military over there brutalizing the communities. So in the U.S. military is what I'm talking about, or the French military, or the British military. So it's important for us to come into alliance with the international struggle and not try to struggle on our own against this system.
Yes, you're right about that. I mean, the police brutality, I mean, people have a short memory. They don't remember what happened in Nigeria a few months ago. Mm-hmm. We've forgot the name of that.
SARS.
Yeah, SARS.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I am on your website. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, let me do this real quick. Where is it? Yep. All right, so guys, so you can go on the website, check it out. There's good information. You can join too. These contacts. What do you need to be a member of We Charge Colonialism?
To become a member, well, you first fill out our membership application. We have different tiers. First of all, what I'm starting to realize is that a lot of people want to partake in an organization without actually being active participants, which we have, a group for people like that who just want to get updates, But as far as actively engaging inside of the organization or being part of a committee, for that, we do have a political education course. It's very brief. It's really not, encompassing of other political education courses, honestly. But it's to make sure that we have a common understanding of the basic principles. We have agreements on those principles. And basically, it's an onboarding process. When you're done with the process, you can join a committee and actively participate in that way.
That's good. And we're getting to the end of this show interview, and Tierney Sheree, I want to know who are your top 3 favorite revolutionary.
Okay.
And give us at least 3 books that we must read.
Oh, it's tougher. All right, top 3. Number 1, Kwame Ture. I've just learned so much from studying him, and he's just my number 1, honestly. I would say 2 and 3 in no particular order, Malcolm X and Winnie Mandela. As far as books to read, okay, so I would advocate, this is not a book written by an African, but I always tell people to read this book because I think it helps them to understand why things are happening in Africa the way that they are. There's a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. If you guys have not read that, it's a really, really interesting book. Basically, the guy, John Perkins, he was a man who used to work for or with the government to basically bribe third world leaders all over the world. And so it really helps you to understand why these things happen and why Africa is in the state that it is today. Mm-hmm. Let me see. Whichever one. Let's see. There's so many. So I'll just say off the top of my head, I mean, Stokely Speaks, that's another good one. Yeah. And one more. Oh gosh. I don't know. There's so many, but I'll just say one I love. I love Amos Wilson. So his book, Black on Black Violence. Yes. I love it. It's really good. That's a good book. I think it's even a good book. It's about Africans in America, but it's a really good book also to understand violence in the diaspora and also in Africa. Basically, the book breaks down how intraracial violence is motivated really by being powerless. Like we hear like, oh, Black on Black violence is just because they're poor or whatever, but it's more than that. It's actually the white supremacist system that makes you to feel powerless, and like you have to get your power back, and you get your power back by exercising control over those around you. So it's funny, I wrote I wrote a paper about that book, and I use that analysis not just on Africans in America, but Africans in South Africa, because we don't know, out of everywhere in the continent, right? South Africa is supposed to be this rich place, you know, among the African countries, but it has the worst rate of Black on Black violence of any other African country. So if you're just going with the poverty analysis, you know, you might say, well, no, South Africa has so many businesses and everything. But what South Africa has is a history of apartheid and the outward white supremacy that has clearly had the people identify this is our oppressor, but we have no power in the situation. And so using Dr. Amos's analysis, I was able to say that the reason why this is the case in South Africa of all countries is because of the white supremacist structure there that is outward for people to know that they're powerless and therefore try to find ways to exercise control by unleashing violence against people who are close proximity to them, who, when they ultimately want to unleash that violence really on the system that oppresses them. So that's my third book.
Good. I like Amos Wilson. Wilson. His work is just phenomenal. To me, it was a genius.
Yeah, he was very, very much a genius. And it's sad that a lot of our people don't. Well, I would say, you know, people who know, you know, things know him. But I wish he was a required reading in college, just like a lot of John Henrik Clarke. He needs to be a required reading. You know, there's some people who it's just crazy who just history. We just forget so much about what's happened in history, and we have to go back and teach our children. Otherwise, no one will.
No one will. And Tierney Sheree just confirm me that, because all these scholars, Amos Wilson, John Henrik Clarke, they're not being cheating in classes here, right? Even in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think, wait, it's on purpose. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you teach people an alternative history and hope that they adopt that as being their frame of reference for what's going on around them. It's funny, even in college courses, if you can get an African studies one, I don't think, a lot of people actually have that on the course reading list. So it is really on a self-education is where, you're going to get educated inside of a colonial system, not by the state structures that are supposed to educate you.
Yes, and we could not hand this show without promoting your book. So please talk about your books.
So again, Fostering False Identity is on Amazon, everyone. If you have an account, you could go in there. But essentially, the purpose of the book, again, is that we organize around this issue, that we start protecting our families, we start protecting ourselves, and we understand that child welfare is a white supremacist institution, the same way that the prison system is. I hear people constantly talk about how the prison industrial complex is this and that, and they are all those things. But we have to understand that there are systems that work in collaboration with that system, and the child welfare system is very much one of those systems. So I wrote the book from, some of my own knowledge. I previously practiced child welfare law. So I drew from a lot of that, and also some personal experiences. I also drew from those also. So I hope that everyone will enjoy reading.
Well done, Tierney Sheree. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And just know this is your house. You don't need to knock at the door. Anytime you have a new project, even myself, I'm gonna be knocking at your door and say, "Hey, Sheree, come back.
Okay.
I want you to come back to talk about this or that, different topics."
Yes, so, absolutely. I'll be back. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're home here. And so I wish you a good afternoon in Maryland. And thank you. And in my native language, we said Matondo Mingi.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye. All right. Alors les gars, je sais que c'était un live, c'est un live en anglais, mais comme je dis toujours, c'est toujours bien d'avoir les deux camps. Il faut entendre des autres panafricains. Parce qu'ils peuvent aussi vous apporter des idées, ils peuvent nous apporter des idées. Il faut communiquer avec tout le monde. Parce que on comprend tous le combat, mais on peut aussi avoir des démarches différentes, on peut avoir des connaissances de partout. Donc, voilà pourquoi moi je me dis toujours que il faut parler à nos frères anglophones, ceux qui sont en Grande-Bretagne, ceux qui sont en Afrique du Sud, ceux qui sont en Amérique. Il faut aussi parler aux autres. Donc, il faut mettre les choses ensemble. Voilà. Donc, je vous remercie beaucoup tous ceux qui ont été là. Sechat, Kakide Combo, Gemini, qui d'autre, Kamita Boy, Ito la Katanges. Donc, je vous remercie beaucoup. On va se retrouver le 19. Le 19, je vais recevoir un frère. C'est un anglophone. C'est un noir américain qui est un écrivain, un auteur, comment on appelle ça, motivational speaker. C'est aussi un consultant. C'est quelqu'un qui va nous parler en fait comment comprendre leur agenda en fait. C'est aussi quelqu'un qui a un parcours street parce qu'il a fait la prison. Il a fait la prison pendant 9 ans. Donc j'espère qu'il va confirmer. S'il confirme, c'est bon. Je devrais l'avoir. Ça c'est prévu pour le lundi prochain. Mais le mardi 20, je vais faire un live en français. Et je vais parler de la lettre de Willie Lynch. La lettre de Willie Lynch. Je ne sais pas si vous en avez entendu parler. Donc, si vous n'avez pas encore entendu parler, essayez de faire quelques petites recherches. C'est quoi la lettre de Willie Lynch? Et apparemment, moi personnellement, et avec d'autres, on a retrouvé la tombe de Willie Lynch. On sait où il a été enterré. Donc, je vais faire un live au moins de 2 heures sur Willie Lynch. Et je dis bien que tous les Noirs qui souffrent de dissonance cognitive, il serait mieux de ne pas suivre ce live-là, quoi. Mais ce live ne sera pas diffusé sur Facebook. Ça sera live seulement sur YouTube. Donc, tous ceux qui me suivent sur Facebook, je ne cesse de le répéter, de le dire. Si vous me suivez que sur Facebook, vous ne verrez que les lives sur Facebook. Et c'est moi qui choisis les lives que je mets sur Facebook. Si vous voulez suivre les autres lives, allez sur ma chaîne YouTube et abonnez-vous pour suivre les autres lives. Donc, ça sera sur la lettre de Willie Lynch. Et je peux vous assurer que beaucoup d'universitaires dans les films, beaucoup de Kamites aussi, beaucoup de panafricains, beaucoup d'écrivains ont écrit sur Willie Lynch. Mais personne d'entre eux nous a dit qui était Willie Lynch. Ils nous disent tout simplement que c'est un gars qui avait quitté les West Indies, la plantation de sa mère qui était une esclavagiste, lui-même un esclavagiste, qui est arrivé aussi en Virginie et qui a tenu un discours devenu fameux. Et moi, je vous dis que je vous réserve beaucoup de surprises avec ce Willie Lynch. Il reste à savoir s'il est faux ou s'il est vrai, s'il a vraiment existé. Mais nous, on a retrouvé sa tombe. Donc ça sera pour le 20 avril. Donc ça sera un mardi. Voilà, donc je vous remercie beaucoup la famille. Je vous souhaite une bonne soirée. Bonne soirée. Je vous fais un OTEP et on se retrouve dans quelques jours, dans pratiquement 7 jours. Allez, à la prochaine. Matondo, OTEP. Bye bye la famille.